very much.
Yes. Without much ado, I'll start with you because my opinion still rests on this, on the topic, the intrigues. What can you give us an overview of the implications of this? What are these intrigues about, or what is the summation of what we are experiencing that make us to call it political intrigues in the last 2 years?
Thank you, Shadrach, once again, of course, my viewer. I'm glad to be here on sabbatical, like you said. Like you already brought up, the intrigue, political intrigue, we mentioned some of the intros, the shift, River State and Bayelsa State, now the last one you mentioned. Of course, look at Delta State is also involved, and many other states, and you notice the political giants are doing their permutations and pulling around. So, but now, given your topic, the focus should be how does it affect the populace, the people? The shifting. Yes, our system, allows for political migration, or some people call it political prostitution. However, it is, they say politics is about permanent interests, and no permanent friends. So that's been understood. How does it affect? So, in going deeper to this conversation, we will see that one of the disadvantages of some of these things, first of all, let's talk about disadvantages before we get into, is that it brings distrust among people, and of course it allows for certain room for corruption, and then of course institutional weakness as well. So the topic you brought is a very important one to look at how, in the course of all of these actions, how the grass, they say, when the two elephants fight, how the grass is suffer. So how do they, remain afloat?
Yeah,
that's my own conversation for now.
Yes, Igere, I think the socio-economic impact is very relevant, first and foremost, but with the understanding of the political intrigues would prefer the reasoning or the resonance around the socio-economic impact. So what is your perception of what has just been thrown out?
Things in proper perspective. I think it would be unfair to say it started 2 years ago, because it has always been here. It has always been here. Even with the First Republic in the 60s, people did it. So it's not a recent thing, jumping ship. It has always been here. And because it has always been here, we must now realize that this is our political culture. I think it's lame to try to destroy it. Every society develops its style of its culture of politics, administration, whatever. This is what we are used to now. Because even our laws don't frown against it. There's no law that says nobody should jump ship from one to the other. So it means that it's acceptable. So if you start seeing it as wrong, because the law does not frown at it as wrong. So let's look at as wrong. It means it's a way of our political life. And that is, we have to look at, is it beneficial and why is it so? Now, you must understand that our democracy that we're having now, since we had independence in the 60s, it has been a disjointed democracy from when the first military coup happened to even the time of Shagari. We've seen that we have had a disjointed democracy. I think this is the longest run we've had in democracy.
Yes.
And if we've had this longest run, it means that somehow something is sustaining this democracy. We must understand that the fact that people are jumping ship from one party to the other, even though it might not sound well to us who are on the other side as an electorate, but it seems to be what is keeping the politics alive. Because, for instance, if people realize that they are not able to jump from one ship to the other, and where they are, they might never taste power, you will find that they will go to extreme measures to ensure that they unseat those in power. So somehow, it appears they are moving around is helping to balance things a bit. And so we must still look at it, because we're looking at socio-economic impact. Now, when I look at it, because having a cursory look at all these things, I found that since 1999, there's something that we are missing in the narration. It is that our policies have not been changing. So it means that despite these people are jumping from party to party, the policies have remained intact. That's why it's easier for us to say the last 2 years that it happens, because it is in the last 2 years that the system shook. Because prior to 2023, all elections have been based on subsidy removal, and dollar issue. But for the first time, that has, because now I'm wondering what they will campaign about in the next election. Because it's the first time we now have a system in the polity where somebody is going against the tide. Because somehow this president's administration seems to be going against the tide for what politicians have been riding on. So somehow it's like the political system is being given a shake now. Because now you're asking, the question is this: what will happen to this country economically? Because the issue in the politics now is the economy. It's nothing else rather than economy and security. There's no other thing you see anybody going to talk about much now. It's just economy and security. Now, and if it's the economy and security, then why do people jump parties? It's clear that they want to be at the center of things. They want to be in the center. So everybody wants to, they believe that once a party is in power, if I'm in that party, it's easier for me to remain in power, or if, or push whoever is out. That's why you see in opposition states, even the opposition, they're not comfortable. They believe that the so-called, I don't like using the word ruling party, but that's what it is. They can decide who comes to take over seat. So that's what's happening here in the political terrain. But then what is the impact on the economy? I found that we put too much effort in politics in this country. Every time you put on your television, it's political discussion. From morning till night is politics. You go to social media, it's rarely the real issues, but it's mainly politics. So if we're talking on politics, the aspect of, what aspect are we giving attention to? Development, real development. Nobody is really looking at this indices. I think that's where we have a problem, and I think that's where this discussion should really look at.
Yes, I think that's a great overview. Now, there's a division right now in opinion because of interest, and from your narration, it's a clear indication that the politicians are more concerned about their interests, not our
collaboration, the KPI. So I'm going to take my statement from the KPI dimension, please. Now, the entire fuel subsidy removal trajectory, we see that, like he said, that now that it's gone, let's see what we will discuss about. Now, the entire political family, let me use that word, a political mountain, I could call it a sector. Everybody agrees there should be subsidy removal. Just some are saying the process of getting it down. Now, and to discuss and say we want to know what it is, it's obvious what it is right now. That statement alone, or the action, the process towards it, has brought us where we are. First of all, the rise in the prices of things. One, the instability. It's just that Nigeria is just a fortunate nation that by nature and maybe nurture, we have the adaptive ability. Because if you look at certain nations, they would have crumbled or divided by now because of economic instability. Because if you want to have true freedom in a system, you must have economic system. You must have economic freedom. And our nation has gone through a lot. And you see, even at the subsidy removal, there's still no regulation. We'd have to go there because, and that's again underscores this political intrigue and movement, because where they would have focused on governance, they are trying to find political fix, And I would not blame them. Let me not use this word. You see, politicians are politicians. Just like how the doctors will focus on in the hospital, they won't focus on the market. So if politicians will focus on their interests, that's fine. I don't have a problem with all of that. But the problem now is that when it's time to govern, you have to shift into governance. And that is what has affected us. And if you look at it from the subsidy trajectory, it sees how it envelopes down the nature of things. And then now it now affects, of course, security. Because once there's hunger, once there's economic issue, people become more desperate. And one of the tools for instability in a nation is hunger. Once you cannot feed your stomach, feed your family, you become desperate. And that brings up also corruption. So people will be covering up. You can see the trail of it that is coming on, now goes. So, and let me say this. I know we might get to that point. Every system decides how it wants to work. I can say this categorically. But there is no system, there is no nation on the face of the earth that doesn't experience corruption to the largest. But these nations decide the areas that they want the corruptions to flow through. So they decide that, you know what, in the socio-economic platform, we will allow corruption. For example, the United Kingdom just sent to jail the Postmaster General of between 1982 to 1983. Something he did as the Postmaster General 1982 to 1983 just went to jail. And those people who operated in that direction or under that leadership as at that time, who have retired since 1980 something, a lot of them are repaying back the monies.
So
there's a system I decided that, you know, when it comes to socio-economic platform, when you talk about, of course, the social platform, where maybe infrastructure, electrification, all of these things that help to build a society. So we don't want that. Take a contract, if you take a job to do this, you must do it. But you notice that they have been mad with the political intrigue, and like you said, shifting position just to, you know, to safeguard power, or to hold on to power, or to clinch onto safety.
Yes, okay, that's clinging onto safety.
Yes.
And that's it's a very expected acts of politicians. Let's look at
I think I have a slightly different opinion. You know, let's look at first the real elephant in the room, is fair subsidy removal. You see, it's more like, I think one of the biggest impact on the topic, about the topic, is economic impact of this political maneuvers is called misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah.
You see, that's the biggest thing, the biggest problem. It's not the policies, it's the information that is thrown out. Because see, one of the best policies, I have been here for more than 3-4 years. I come here, I've always said this: subsidy is a mess. Any form of subsidy is a mess. Any form, whether it is fuel, health, electricity, whatever, it's a mess. Let me tell you why. Subsidy makes sense in a socialist economy. You cannot run capitalism and be subsidizing. You kill free market. And so how do you now get investment? You kill free market. See, I give you a clear issue that's happening currently. 3 weeks before the Israel-Iran war, because I live on the express, I check, even my kids do it, I check all the filling stations prices, because by law now, yes, DPR has mandated that they must fix their prices. You will see at that time, 910, 930, 890. You choose where you buy. That's free market. Now when the crisis came up, it moved to 950. Nobody has exceeded 950. No government control. It is free market. That's why you are seeing new filling stations coming up, because it's a free market. The moment you say government will subsidize, what happens is that you now have to learn the intrigues of manipulating the market. Now it's a free market. I buy my fuel at a liter maybe 890. I now know my margins, and I trade it and I make my profit. Now you see, the truth is, what the politicians are succeeded in doing to us now, and that's the mindset we are running with, is that how can you remove subsidy? Funny enough, I don't want to call names. One of the candidates that keep talking about bad subsidy was in a chat room yesterday, and he was asked, when you come, would petrol price be reduced to 300 naira? He said he cannot assure it. Why? Because it's not possible. It's not possible. If the subsidy had not been removed, you and I would have been sitting here, because we've come to a point where the country was borrowing to subsidize. A man doesn't have a job. He wants to marry. He borrowed to marry. Then he's buying gifts. That's where we were as a country. But what these politicians are in their interest that forming us and making us feel like, no, this person can listen. No matter what, I'm not a politician, but one thing we must give to this current president is that he's bold at taking decisions. Because if he had not taken that decision, there's no way by now no government would exist. That's why all the governors are supporting him, because they know without him, who would have been doing any project? No money. This road, the road between Asaba and Nugeli, you know how many years it has been going on? It's not been completed now. Because the funds are now available. Let's Let's say what it is. It is misinformation and disinformation that the opposition is just using. If not, to tell the truth, subsidy was very irresponsible. It was okay when it came in 75, but we have outgrown it, so no need. So let it go. Now, yes, people will feel the impact. People will feel so many things. Let's look at all the intrigues. For instance, when we talk about insecurity, look at the level of insecurity. Who are those causing the insecurity? The insecurity are in the middle belt and in the north. Yes. And look at those causing it. I'm sorry to say I'm not a security expert, but it's mainly along banditry and all the rest. And it seemed to have political connotation.
Yeah.
How come Kaduna, that used to be the hotbed of banditry, now is calm? What happened? Did they arrest anybody? It meant that the problem can be solved.
Definitely.
But it does not move to Benue. Because the governor of Kaduna State knows what he's doing and he has managed it. The current governor has managed it. What the politicians are using is, they are running, thinking we are ignorant people, and using all these things to cause crisis in order for them to come to power. Remember in 2015 when Jonathan was to be removed, we saw these kind of things. So we must not allow these intrigues that they are playing to cause look like we don't know what is happening. The truth is this: all these their movements have effects on you and I in terms of insecurity, because I believe that they have a role to play in what is happening. All of a sudden, once they are in, it goes down. Once they are out, it goes up. No, it shouldn't be. So these are the issues. That's why I say we must really put it in context. It is a lot of disinformation and misinformation that opposition and others are putting into the public, and that's why we are all shouting about.
Quite interesting. If you're just joining us, as the faculty on Delta Broadcasting Service Television or Saba, and today we're looking at a very topical issue, the socio-economic impact of political intrigues emanating from political decisions, and of course policy implementation, and rather formulation and implementation. Now, we've looked at the removal of fuel subsidy, and quite an elaborate one from my two panelists here, and because we're going to be looking right now at the political movement. I call them political movement. The movement of a politician from party A to party B. Most recently, we've had a tsunami. Alliances have been formed, and a lot of politicians have left their parties of gaining political influence and political offices to the ruling party, the APC, for political relevance and of course more patronage by the party sector. We're going to be looking at that and its relevance, the intrigues relating to the movement of politicians from one party to another.
Yeah. You know, it's quite dumbfounding, but that's just the truth. You know, like Ruti said, I'm not a politician, but I'm technical and observe a lot of the Nigerian politics is unique. We have to say it. Very unique, and it comes to new. You know, like we are men here, but if you ask women, I have my wife, and that's all. We all have our wives. If you ask them, no two pregnancies is the same. That's Nigerian politics. You wake up one morning and you find another interesting movement. You see things that you do not expect to happen. But however, let's go back to pre-First Republic. And let's look at some of the intrigues that took place there to see that, like Elite actually stated, because maybe it will also help us to understand our political DNA. For me, I don't think that the shiftings and what you call betrayals or dumping and aligning or moving is going to ever change. Like he said, we need to accept it as our political culture and begin to build around it. That's my goal. That we need to accept who we are and know how we run it. If you go back, the entire process, the Awolowo, the Zik, what's our brother from Saple, a very rich guy, Okotiebo, and on all of these things, it was just like that. There was always political manipulations and maneuvering, you know, inviting Zik, Awolowo, and some of these things, and after a while, Zik now joining and getting funding from Okotiebo, and Okotiebo also scheming, everybody scheming to be relevant, you know. Like I tell my people, one of the things that make you not to expire is relevance. So everybody's fighting for political relevance.
Exactly.
And in that pursuit, you understand, we do not define it. I think, and I believe that what we should start to look at is how to define our political states. There was something Eriti said here, and I tried to bring it economically. He talked about that you cannot bring a socialist structure into a capitalist whatever. But there is the place of mixed economy. So we have to decide. If you ask me personally, I don't even think democracy is our system. We have to define it. Everybody defines it. The United Kingdom defines a parliamentary system for themselves and still holding on to monarchy on one side. And another country saying we are monarchies. Iran, like you mentioned, is saying we are Islamic. So, and do you understand? And they have created, for me, I would think, if we begin to think towards a blend of democracy and autocracy, because there is a need for enforcement.
That's it.
There's a need for enforcement, and we have not mastered the act of enforcing what we say and then evaluating. Like he said, misinformation and disinformation. But the truth is that what can the common masses do with the information available? We are sitting down here, we are talking. What can we really do? We're just going to talk.
But you see, we need to talk. You see,
I agree.
Societies are built on, it's words that build societies.
Yes.
So you don't keep quiet.
Words are very powerful, yes.
Yeah, words build societies.
Yes.
Everything we see is based on words. Now, you see, the point here is this. I support totally everything he has said. But you see, we must understand one fact, that societies develop according to culture, their culture. So when you see the US is not democratic because they saw it somewhere and felt it's the best government and they chose to do it. They chose democracy because they found that they were a mixture of people, different persons. So they had to, agree and based on.
They actually had a lot of these issues as well.
Yes, I'm talking about even in the 60s. It was here in the 60s. It's still on.
It's still on in the US. My point is that my point is that we're on the same ground.
Yeah.
My point is that I believe that even our conversations with maybe the politicians are not even saying what we, because when there's a football match.
No, they are. I think they are saying it.
Maybe when there's a football match, or a game of chess or something, you're outside, you can see a lot of moves. The guys don't see. That's what keeps saying, why the coach not doing this? Maybe they're not, because we have not seen them come out to discuss this.
No, I think they are. They see it.
Okay.
Why can't they act? No. You see, let me tell you, societies. I always tell people, but especially when people talk about corruption, things that I say, they are managing the economy of a nation. It's not home economics. If you are in your house and you don't have paper, you just buy paper and bring. If your life is not working, you just do it. But in a nation, it's different. Nations change gradually. It's very slow. It takes generations for you to get to the destination when nations are changing. It's not something you think the person just says in 2 years I will do it. No, if he tells you that run away, it's a lie. It's not possible. Nobody can change a nation in 20 years. So, it's a gradual process. But the issue is, what direction are we going? Because I've always told people that I don't believe in American democracy for Nigeria. It won't work. There's nobody will come out today, my brother. Nobody will come out. Even the pastor of that church that will not come out. Will not come out.
Let me ask you. Don't even see yourself. Sometimes you find yourself trying to break the law when you are driving.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's because something that is in it.
Yeah, it is us. So what I think the politicians, if you notice gradually, when we got Buhari in 2015, he was a strong leader in sense of done what we expected, but we are saying that gradually, without knowing, we are gravitating towards that level where we are almost having authoritarian leaders. Though we are still complaining in a democratic way, we don't like what they are doing, but gradually, it appears the politicians now know that, man, if I am so gentle with these people, they won't go where we are going. No, let me finish. Let me give you my line of thought. Because this is what I think is happening gradually. We are seeing that the leaders are taking the reins of power, they are holding on to it strongly, and they are now almost determining what those under them will do. So you find that, for instance, the case of rivers that we're going to talk about, the president looked at river, whatever is happening, he used a hammer to kill a fly there.
Let's go straight to the river.
So,
river state
so many things are going to
now.
happen.
I mean, for the very first time in a democratic dispensation, His Excellency, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic, under controversial circumstances, decided to put a state of emergency in Rivers State, suspending the governor, the legislature, and as appointees for a period of 6 months. And then, 2 weeks ago, after a series of pre-final meeting, I call 2 weeks ago's meeting final meeting, the policy, a policy was brought out. A policy statement was read out to the Nigerian public, and in affirmation to that, the deposed, I want to call him a deposed governor, agreed to all that was said, but there were some caveats. Nigerians were not comfortable that he is not going to be running for a second term. If more, I don't know how true that, because we didn't see a paper to that effect. That he's not going to be running for a second term. He's going to be his only term. He has just two agreements, and does that augur well for our democracy?
That's what I'm saying. It does not all go well, because you cannot change the goalposts in the middle of the match. And I remember during Obasanjo's time. Then I was working with the former vice president, which is so rest in peace, that Admiral Mike Ayibe. And when they had the state of emergency issue with Dari, and General Ali was being appointed to, the decision was made in my office. So he came for instructions on how to run the state. And some of the things that they discussed, I was privileged to be there because I was personally attached to Ayibe. And there are statements that Ayibe told Akil. And one of them was, there are some things that you answer openly, some things you don't answer openly. There are some things you don't hold your head, some things you let go. Now why am I bringing that up here? Because you said that the president looked at Rivers State and brought out these things, and some of the caveats are there. And there are some that the governor, or the, like you said, deposed. I don't think it's deposed, it's just that he just aside. Yes. Just to set aside, like the other room thing, just set aside, and because of where he's going to, because it still falls back to political relevance. So whether he agrees for because if he agrees for 2 terms, if he becomes a politician, or the spirit of politics, which of course man is a political animal, if obviously it's evident that he is, because you can just walk away from there. After all, people step down and say because of certain controversies, economic controversies, financial controversies, I step down from government. But if he's going backward, it means that he has political interest. So when you tell somebody, says whether it's 1 term or 2 terms, let's wait. In the future, there will be intrigues. The stories will turn around, and then you see other things. Yeah. So, but my focus is not that. My focus is what did the president want when he did that? And why are we some people are clamoring that what happened in Rivers State
should have been happening in Benue State, please.
Exactly.
Where you had more press.
So now that tells you at the end of the day that these guys know what they are doing, and they are following their occupation. I don't have a problem with what politicians are doing. My problem is that they are playing with the mandate. And it comes back to what we're talking about, that we need to sit back and begin to define certain policies that works for the Nigerian state. Those policies that we will agree to function with. If you ask me, we don't have a national roadmap.
Exactly.
And no matter what, if you look at the civilized clubs and the US and all, they have a national roadmap. The American dream is there, right? Yeah. And whoever is coming in works with that, whatever. And thank God my brother here also identified something. He said you cannot change the nation in 20 years. True. Because if you look at guys who have done those transformational changes like Lee Kuan Yew, it took them 30 years, and it was intentional. Now that brings me to what I feel that we should work on. But maybe if time permits, I'll be able to stress it out. You know, we need to work on our values. We need to work on our ideals. And we need to work on our principles. So I call it VIP.
Okay. VIP. Values, ideals, and principles. Obviously, three words, or rather,
Yes.
3 letters, similar but different. Let me
Yes.
come to you, Unity.
River State. You know, I think, was it Reno Mokri that said something? He said Nigerians are too emotional. And I've said it on this set. I told him, you are just too emotional. Let's look at the facts.
Yes.
Because emotions cannot cover the facts. The facts will know what they are. Yeah, you see, sometimes some things we don't feel good about certain things, but that doesn't make our feelings to determine where those things will go.
True.
You know, the issue of River State is a very complicated issue. You know, and I would say that in all, even when it started, I said I blame Fubara. You see, you don't go into a game without first looking at the rules of the game.
Yeah,
No matter the skills you have, know the rules. It's the rules that will determine how to play that game, not the skills. So even the most skillful players might not even win tournaments because they don't understand the rules. So I think he got in getting carried away with the same information on the social sphere. Because if you do that, you just get out easily. It happened to Ambode. It's not because the godfather issue, it's because you don't know how to manage people. You see, whether you like it or not, everybody at one time has godfathers. But you see, the problem of Rivers was that he didn't even understand the dynamics. I remember when the elections were going on. Funny enough, when those elections were going, I knew we saw it, the opposition he faced.
Yeah.
And somehow he emerged. You see, even you can have a crisis with your godfather. It's not a difficulty. You can have it, but the trajectory he went was one that was leading to disaster. You see, when I watched that video where he said, just wait on when we give the order, I was like, no, you crossed the line. You shouldn't have
That
done
was a
that.
schoolboy response.
We want to do that, and they pushed him to it. You see, somebody says on the
I think he's
side,
taking sides.
even if you want to take
No,
sides,
not him
we-
now. I'm saying that because Sheldon said something. I said, no, you took a long time. So that I'll let you plan
No
your
problem.
conversation
No
because
problem.
I just want
No,
us to have a
you see, no, what I'm saying here is he allowed the situation to deteriorate too far. Remember, this is not the first meeting he's having with the president, the three of them. He had gone there before and it was assumed they settled it. He went back and said that thing they did there. And no,
Exactly.
you don't sit with the head of state and go back and no, it's not done.
That's what I'm asking you.
He
The question
got
is
it
that
wrong.
Did you take that thing he did there? Did you hear him say?
Yes, the video is there. You
That
want
he
it?
said that thing.
That-
he
that-
did there.
right, yes.
And you know, and when he
No,
said
no,
that,
see, please, let me make this point. No, it's there. The videos are there. No, you can even, I'm not, see, what I'm trying to point out is, because you made a point that
Yes.
what happened in Rivers and what happened in Benue, you know, I wanted to
Yes.
give the example. You
Yes.
see, remember when the state of emergency was declared, then the National Assembly did whatever they did. Remember, I don't know if you when the Attorney General of the Federation came to defend it. I don't know if you follow it. When he defended it, nobody could make any noise. Because he gave the point. He said Rivers had deteriorated to the point where the governor himself was even threatening the system.
That one. In fact, that was
The
what he
governor
held on
himself was
to,
threatening the system.
and which was correct.
It was correct. He said it. It was correct. It's there.
Granted.
So, and if you read your constitution, there's a section that because when you are
Yes, another section.
the governor, the president had to. So he walked into probably a trap that was set with his eyes open. He walked in.
What about the
Ignorant, man,
implications?
Now, the implication of that we were going.
The Rivers people are-
Who is losing? It is the Rivers people. Because whether you like it or not, they voted. Or INEC gave them, whatever way you want to say it,
They voted.
And this man finally became the governor. Now, that vote has been suspended for 6 months.
Yes.
So they've lost it. Now, apart from that too, the period of all this noise, they've lost economically. There are a lot of social
those are the
issues
social
that have
economic
happened in
issues
Rivers.
That the sole administration cannot do.
No,
No,
it
not
has
that.
happened.
It
Not that
has
the coca.
happened.
It has
It
happened.
happened already.
Do you know the man house? Do you know the people died? Do you know the riots? Do you know the protests?
Yeah, I'm understanding.
It's to find out. You know how many destruction? Imagine a house of assembly that had no problem was demolished.
Demolished. ask for civil.
You suspect, no problem. Somebody, a governor went there, demolished
are
it.
the-
So
those
many
are-
things. So they got it wrong. So what he is facing now is a result of being an immature politician. Because if he was really a mature politician and he had the right people around him, he wouldn't have been where he is. So it shows that sometimes these are politicians carry along. Sometimes they're not even helping them.
Yeah.
They're just clapping till you get to where they
Well,
want.
guess what? It's also a fair
No.
deal. It's also like I said. We are both on the same boat. But I'm looking at it because when you say some of these things, yes, somebody puts you. Yes, like you said, we always nobody gets to the top without somebody. That's the truth. But in all of this, if you look at it again, the guy was just trying to stabilize himself. Because if you go back to history and look at so many emperors, empires, kings, all of these things, you get to the point where there's a place to state your stand. Maybe he did it too early.
Exactly.
Because people will say that who is Fubara in the political scheme of Nigerian politics. It's important to understand that. Or maybe in the state as well. I don't know much about Rivers State, but I know that in the political state as well, what's his disposition, But like you said, a lot of people were behind him, those who look like the hand without a face. And then now because now that he's in trouble, the faces are not there, the hands are no longer.
They only
are
look-
no longer there.
No,
So
but you
it's
see
like
the
what I'm
problem.
saying that let policies, it still comes down to policy.
No, we all know policies would drive
Direct
the nation.
exactly.
But you see, there are still humans that will make these
Pursue
policies, implement the policies,
Yes.
and those who will evaluate them.
Yes.
But the problem, like I said in Rivers, is more like, I think he allowed too much talks. Because see,
Too many sides. So
For
people just
instance,
giving him heart unnecessarily.
yeah, there are people who were not from Rivers
That
that
were-
were even supporting him.
We're saying the same thing.
For God's
At the same
sake. So we saw the elections in the US where Elon Musk
Yes.
was forming the Trump election.
But that
Wait
that
now,
was the
we
US.
saw it. But when they had issues, Elon Musk fell out with the president.
of course.
It was until his businesses were being
Started
affected that he
having
apologized and stepped back. Hey, humans, every one of us is selfish. Let's not first of all deceive ourselves.
Very much. Now you're
Every one of us is selfish. And so if somebody puts you in, if you're not going to just walk out of it, because you cannot say the man, listen. I remember, there's somebody, I will call his name because it's necessary. I don't know if we watched the video when Tom Polo spoke on the issue. He said it. He said when Wike chose our brother, how many of us supported him? Many of us did not.
Yeah.
He said it. He said when he put him in, many of us, he said, so now, rather than us fighting Wike, we should settle.
Yes.
See, the truth is this, I am not supporting any godfather pushing anybody. But I'm saying this. If a godfather approaches you and you know that you cannot do what, don't go with him.
Don't go.
Don't go because the people of Rivers are suffering because of that your action. If you are not gone, somebody probably his lawyer went. Maybe today they won't have fought for this period. Rivers is losing. Of course,
Rivers is
definitely.
losing.
Rivers is losing. So what I'm saying is, don't go into all these arrangements or it happened in Anambra now. Remember Okija issue?
It happens
everywhere. But from a lawyer, they take it. So,
All right. Quite an interesting afternoon. This, I wish we could have had more time to look into this very important issue, the socio-economic impact of political intrigues. It's been faculty, and I've got two great men to do justice to this topic this afternoon. I want to appreciate Gabriel Kunji, Pastor, for coming on the course. Come with me, Igere. Thanks for
Thank you
coming.
very much.
Yes, the faculty returns to your studios again by tomorrow. Make sure you stay tuned. Good afternoon.